What is it that you expect the new week to bring to your almost Christmas doorstep? New opportunities? Old friend? Some Christmas spirit to cheer you up? Whatever it is at your end, a new week here in Ukraine is marked with new expectations just as well. Another Russian shelling wave is highly expected. Today is Monday and it's manic indeed. The country is preparing for new airstrikes. Good afternoon, this is Henry Keane and Daily Wrap-Up Show on Freedom TV channel. Fortunately, no matter how inappropriate the term might be looking in the context, the Russians cannot launch hundreds of missiles over Ukraine every day, since most of the missiles are sea-to-surface and air-to-surface class. Therefore, fortunately, means that Russian ships or submarines have to first enter ports to renew their deadly stock. In turn, unfortunately, that is all of the fortunate news there is. A Russian missile carrier entered the Black Sea yesterday. Natalia Gumenyuk, Operational Command South, Security and Defense Force Press Center head, confirms the carrier has 8 Caliber types missiles on board. While the world is carefully, slowly and somewhat to no avail counts the pros and cons of closing Ukrainian skies, Russian command will strike upon critical infrastructure and will kill more Ukrainians and let the winter do the dirty deed.
Ukrainians experienced the worst in February-March when hundreds of rockets flew over our heads. Russians' military aircrafts were observed in our skies every day and active air battles took place. After that, is it really possible to scare us with something else? Moreover, there simply aren't so many high-precision long-range missiles left in Russia, disposal with which they can massively strike our rear.
Mind-boggling is the bare fact we are talking about things like that in November 2022? In the middle of Europe, witnessing the whole country in the middle of Europe sinking in darkness and cold simply because the Russian Tsar is furious. He has a good reason, though. The Ukrainian army is wearing out its troops on the battlefield day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute. Putin is losing the war he has started himself. Kind of embarrassing, don't you think, for an even self-proclaimed Tsar? It drives the Tsar mad, making him wage a tactically pointless war on civilians, women and children. No power, heating, internet and cellular signal. But this child in emergency gets help. These places are called Point of Invincibility, one of a yet 4,000 places across the country where you can warm up, charge your devices and text your dear ones you're all right, for now. City authorities promise power back on for 2-3 hours twice per day, which is an amazing job. Considering more airstrikes upcoming, I was editing the text for this very show in a shelter. While the airstrike alarm was blaring, how many missiles this time? I was thinking 30, 70, 100 maybe? Ukrenergo, state energy provider, reported that about a quarter of the required capacity is currently missing. However, with further strikes upcoming, we are doing what we always do. We're getting ready. The best-selling gift for Christmas in Ukraine is a power generator. The best gift for the whole country, as per Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, Alexei Danilov, however, is something completely else.
The best and most effective solution to the energy problem for Ukraine is missiles with a range of 800 kilometers or more, which will allow a significant savings on generators.
Mr. Danilov also quite colorfully titled the Russian army, calling it the second transformer. Indeed, impotent on the battlefield, Russians are waging a heroic struggle with Ukrainian hydroelectric and thermal power plants for several weeks in a row. Well, nothing new. Russians have previously already tried to deprive us of fuel and the whole world of grain. Well, we will deal with this challenge exactly the way we have dealt with the previous ones. United. The main military and political department of Russia, MOD, prepared and sent a document to the troops entitled Conclusions of the War with NATO in Ukraine. Wait a sec. Am I confused? So now it is NATO Russia is fighting and Ukraine is just what? A geotag? Well, here are some naked facts. Ukraine is not yet a member of NATO, and Article 5 on collective defense does not apply to us. Yet there are no NATO military bases in Ukraine. If Russia states otherwise, then it is either pure lies as usual or another failure of Russian military intelligence, which is actually even more usual. Anyhow, military bases can easily be discovered by satellite surveillance, and such imagery published will immediately prove who's lying. NATO does not plan and does not command operations in Ukraine. They don't even close the sky over us, remember? And it is not soldiers of NATO fighting and dying in Ukraine. Apart from few foreign volunteers, soldiers who no longer serve in any other but Ukrainian army, the Polish mercenaries, as multiple times Russian addressed to them, are mostly Ukrainians, speaking their native language, Ukrainian, a language that Russians just don't understand, mistaking it for Polish. Yes, NATO helps Ukrainians fight back Russian aggression.
The more military support, the stronger Ukrainians' position in the negotiation is. If Putin wins the war, he and other dictators will continue to violently abuse any law for the sake of their interests.
But let's give a word to NATO directly. I quote from here. For more than 30 years, NATO tried to build a partnership with Russia, developing dialogue and practical cooperation in areas of common interest. Despite all the attempts over the past decade, Russia has continuously violated the norms and principles that contributed to a stable and predictable European security order. Russia's brutal and unlawful war of aggression against Ukraine has shattered peace and gravely altered the security environment. In light of this hostile policies and actions, NATO cannot consider Russia to be a partner. The Russian Federation is the most significant and direct threat to Allies' security and to peace and stability in the Euro-Atlantic area. However, NATO remains willing to keep open channels of communication with Moscow and to manage and mitigate risks, prevent escalation, and increase transparency. NATO does not seek confrontation and poses no threat to Russia. The alliance will continue to respond to Russian threats and hostile actions in a united and responsible way. Actually, the claim itself that Russia is at war with NATO is not only manipulative and false, but very elegant. It very much enlightens us on the level of despair that reigns in Russian army leadership. So, yes, NATO provides resources and diplomatic support, but it is solely the defense forces of Ukraine that fights Russia directly, and hands Russians their heads on the battlefield. Bearing such shameful defeats as Kharkiv and Kherson in a row clearly pinpoints the obvious. For Russia, the potential real involvement in a direct warfare with NATO would leave no chance for the survival of Putin's regime. That is why Russian propaganda is trying to sweeten the bitter pill of insulting defeat suffered from a multifold smaller enemy, Ukrainian army, by magnifying the threat same multifold. This is how a war with NATO term has been born. I mean, Russia has been fighting against Ukraine since 2014, and so-called DPR and LPR have been nothing but a smokescreen for Russia's hybrid aggression. The military formations of these two pseudo-republics were created, equipped, managed, and partially staffed by Russians, and always acted solely in the interests of Russia. Yet, Russia just can't win. Even so, Putin promised a swift liberation of Ukraine in 3 days. And it has been 9 months since then. As per Interfax agency, a week ago, on November 22nd, Canada issued bonds on its support of Ukraine. First announced last month by the Prime Minister of Sovereignty bond in the amount of $500 million, purchased by Canadians should help the Ukrainian government to continue the financial support to civilians, as well as to help to restore critical infrastructure. The bond is called Ukraine Sovereignty Bond and is 100% secured by Canada's credit rating, AAA. It costs $100.
I am grateful to the Government of Canada for this decision and personally to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance of Canada, Christina Freeland, for her leadership in this process. The issuance of bonds in favor of Ukraine is an extremely crucial support during the barbaric actions of Russia destroying our energy infrastructure.
Under the title Ukraine Sovereignty Bond, Canadians will, in effect, be purchasing a regular 5-year Government of Canada bond at roughly 3% rate of return. All Canadians interested in purchasing should have contacted their investment advisors or financial institutions until, today, November 29th. So what happens next? Next, a $500 million will be available through the International Monetary Fund, IMF, transfer in favor of Ukraine. What does it mean for Ukraine? It means direct investors support right here and now, when the war-torn country needs it most. Also, Canada is providing additional support to Ukraine through its shareholdings in international financial institutions, including the IMF, the World Bank, and the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. Since the onset of Russia's illegal invasion, these three institutions have together committed more than $28 billion to support the people of Ukraine. When something like that happens, we every now and then hear yells of no doubt pro-Russian instigated propaganda mouth, shouting something like, "Let's get back to our local problems. Let's help ourselves in the first place and forget about Ukraine and its problems. We have enough of our own. And it's Christmas, just by the way. Why should we bother overburden budgets with extra not so much payload? It's against our national interests. Let Ukraine settle their score with Russia alone, and we just see what happens."
Wir sind für Frieden, gegen die Sanktionen, gegen die hohen Preise von Strom und Gas und für die Neutralität. Wegen denen sind wir heute hier.
Weil Sie der Meinung sind, das funktioniert momentan nicht, wer ist schuld dran?
Die Regierung ist schuld, weil die untergräbt alles.
Ukraine know exactly what is going to happen if Tsar Putin is not deposed. The small dictator, maddened by impunity, Putin will push further. Oh, he will. Please have no doubt about that. And you know what? Go on. Whatever, just have your doubts. Unfortunately, it just doesn't matter. One way or the other, if not stopped, Putin will do everything to restore the rusty, outdated monster of the Soviet Empire, part of which are nowadays NATO countries. And in this case, in Putin's round, pale face, the West will face a direct military threat, the elimination of which will take decades and trillions of dollars. Again, that is why helping Ukraine here and now means no less than helping the whole free world. So God bless Canada for tightening the bonds with us, literally, and every country of the world that understands this clearly and by helping Ukraine helps its future self. It was Henry Keane and a daily wrap-up show from Ukraine for the whole free world. See you tomorrow on Freedom TV channel.